What happens when a teenager chooses one of rock music's most demanding songs and refuses to sing it the usual way? That was the question surrounding Angelina Jordan's appearance on America's Got Talent: The Champions in 2020. At just 13 years old, the Norwegian singer stepped onto the stage with an unusually stripped-back interpretation of Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody. The choice immediately created enormous expectations because the original recording is closely associated with Freddie Mercury's extraordinary voice and Queen's elaborate arrangement. Instead of trying to imitate Mercury, Angelina approached the song from a completely different musical perspective. Her performance relied on restraint, phrasing, atmosphere, and vocal control. That decision quickly became one of the most talked about elements of the audition. The performance eventually earned a golden buzzer from Heidi Klum, sending Angelina directly into the next stage of the competition. But the most interesting development happened after the performance ended. Queen themselves noticed what Angelina had done, and their reaction gave this performance an entirely different level of attention. Angelina did not simply choose a famous song, she chose one of Queen's most demanding musical statements. Bohemian Rhapsody was released in 1975 and became one of Queen's defining recordings. The song moves through several contrasting sections, combining ballad writing, operatic vocals, and hard rock into a structure that was highly unusual for a major single. Brian May has spoken about how risky the song originally seemed, especially because of its unusual length and complex arrangement. Yet Queen refused to turn it into something more conventional. That history makes Angelina's decision even more interesting. She was not performing an ordinary pop song with a simple verse and chorus. She was interpreting a composition that had already challenged the rules of mainstream music decades earlier. Instead of reproducing Queen's original arrangement, Angelina created something much more intimate. Her version reduced the scale and allowed the emotion of the melody to come forward. That creative decision became one of the biggest reasons viewers reacted so strongly. But there was something else that made the performance stand out. The biggest surprise was that Angelina did not try to become Freddie Mercury. Many singers performing a legendary Queen song might attempt to reproduce Mercury's power, theatrical delivery, and dramatic vocal peaks. Angelina took another route. Her interpretation was softer, more restrained, and influenced by the jazz-oriented style that had already become part of her musical identity. That distinction mattered because imitation can easily become the weakness of a tribute performance. Angelina instead treated the composition as something she could interpret in her own voice. Her phrasing created space between the notes, while her controlled delivery allowed the emotional character of the melody to remain prominent. The result was not a replacement for the original. It was a completely different perspective on the same composition. She was not trying to compete with Freddie Mercury. She was showing what the song could sound like through her own musical identity. And that approach helped separate her performance from countless other Queen covers. But inside the studio, the judges had already reached their own conclusion. Before Queen entered the conversation, the judges had already made their verdict clear. Angelina's performance received an extraordinary response from the America's Got Talent: The Champions panel. Heidi Klum ultimately used her golden buzzer, giving Angelina an immediate path forward in the competition. The moment transformed the performance from a strong audition into a major television event. The reaction was not simply about Angelina hitting difficult notes. The judges were responding to her confidence, control, and individuality. Howie Mandel told her that he believed the performance could change her life and career. Other judges also praised the young singer, while Klum's golden buzzer made the moment even more memorable. For a 13-year-old performer facing a song with such a massive musical legacy, it was a significant achievement.
The golden buzzer also helped the performance reach an even larger audience beyond the original television broadcast. But then something happened that Angelina could not control. The people behind the original song were watching too. The moment that changed the story came after the performance, when Queen themselves acknowledged Angelina's version. On January 8, 2020, the official Queen account responded to the America's Got Talent post featuring her performance. The message was short but powerful. Queen wrote, "Wow, what a rendition of Bohemian Rhapsody," while tagging Angelina Jordan. That is the part of the story that can be verified. It is important to make one distinction here. there is no reliable evidence confirming that Brian May personally said he was literally speechless over Angelina's performance. The stronger headline is a dramatic interpretation, not a confirmed direct quote from May. What is confirmed is that Queen's official account publicly praised Angelina's rendition. That reaction carried significance because Bohemian Rhapsody is one of the songs most closely associated with Queen's legacy. Angelina had taken that iconic composition and presented it in a completely different form. The official response showed that the performance had reached beyond the television judges and into the world of the band itself. And to understand why that matters, we have to look at Brian May's connection to the song.
Brian May knows exactly how important Bohemian Rhapsody is to Queen. He was there when the band created the recording, and he has spoken repeatedly about its unusual construction and importance to Queen's history. The song was ambitious, unconventional, and far longer than the typical radio single of its era. Yet Queen believed in the recording and refused to reduce it simply to make it easier for radio. Decades later, the song remains one of the most recognizable recordings in popular music. That background changes the meaning of Angelina's performance. She was not simply covering an old hit. She was interpreting a song that represented one of the most ambitious chapters in Queen's career. Brian May understood the creative risks behind that original recording. So when Angelina approached it from another direction, the performance became more than a standard talent show cover. It became another example of how a legendary composition can be transformed without losing its identity. And the most interesting part may have been what Angelina deliberately left out. The secret may have been what Angelina did not try to add. Instead of reproducing the enormous scale of Queen's original production, she created room for her voice to become the center of attention. Her version was intimate and understated, allowing small changes in tone and phrasing to carry much of the emotion. That approach can actually be more difficult because a quieter performance gives the singer nowhere to hide. Every breath, pause, and vocal decision becomes easier for the audience to notice. Angelina's interpretation, therefore, depended less on spectacle and more on musical confidence. She was not attempting to compete directly with Freddie Mercury's original recording. She was creating a new interpretation while preserving the identity of the composition. That helped separate her version from traditional tribute performances. Viewers were not simply hearing another singer attempt Queen. They were hearing a familiar song transformed into something unexpectedly intimate. That is likely why the performance continued to attract attention long after the original broadcast. And there is another Brian May connection that makes the story even more interesting. Brian May has already seen how a different vocalist can completely change the way audiences hear Queen's music. Years before Angelina's performance, May became aware of Adam Lambert after Lambert auditioned for American Idol with Bohemian Rhapsody. The performance attracted attention from Queen, eventually contributing to the collaboration between Queen and Lambert. Lambert brought a powerful and theatrical style to Queen's music. Angelina brought something very different. Her approach was quieter, soulful, and heavily focused on interpretation. The comparison does not mean Angelina was ever being considered as a Queen vocalist. There is no evidence supporting such a claim. The connection is simply that both artists demonstrated how Queen's catalog can be reinterpreted by singers with very different identities. That is part of the reason Angelina's performance remains interesting. Queen's music was created decades earlier, yet younger artists continue finding new ways to present it. In Angelina's case, the transformation was particularly striking because she was only 13 years old when she took on one of the band's most iconic songs. But the real question is what happened after the viral moment. The real test of a viral performance is what happens after everyone stops talking about it. Angelina Jordan's career continued beyond her appearance on America's Got Talent, The Champions. The 2020 performance introduced her to a much larger international audience, but it did not become the end of her story. Angelina continued developing her music, releasing new material, performing, and building an audience around her distinctive vocal style. Her career also expanded into original music and collaborations. That matters because viral attention can disappear quickly when an artist has only one memorable performance. Angelina's continued work shows that Bohemian Rhapsody was one important chapter in a much larger musical journey. The Queen connection remains powerful because it represents the moment when a young singer confronted one of the most recognizable songs in rock history and received public praise from the band associated with it. Years later, the performance continues to circulate online and attract new listeners. That persistence suggests that something about the interpretation connected with audiences on a deeper level. And that brings us back to the headline that started this entire story. So, was Brian May really speechless? The available evidence does not establish that Brian May personally made that statement. What can be verified is much more concrete. Angelina Jordan performed her own arrangement of Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody on America's Got Talent: The Champions in 2020. Heidi Klum responded with the Golden Buzzer, the judges praised the performance, and then Queen's official account publicly reacted with the words, "Wow, what a rendition of Bohemian Rhapsody." That is the documented moment. Angelina did not replace Freddie Mercury. She did not attempt to become Queen. Instead, she took one of the most recognizable songs in rock history and made it sound like her own. That may be the real reason the performance continues to attract attention. A song that had already survived generations of listeners suddenly sounded unfamiliar again. And perhaps that is the most surprising part of the entire story. The headline may ask whether Brian May was speechless, but the bigger story is how a 13-year-old singer managed to make one of Queen's most famous songs feel fresh enough to earn recognition from Queen themselves. Sometimes, the most powerful performances are not the ones that imitate history.
They are the ones brave enough to reinterpret it.